Being at the Toronto Botanical Garden for my community placement was extremely revelationary of how institutions in our community are able to support our schools and how our schools are even able to enhance these community organizations. It goes both ways. The students that we had at our placement would come on field trips, and they were all from model schools. And so there was a priority list of schools within the TDSB, within the community, that were shown as the highest need. And this programming was free for them, and the buses, more than half of it paid. And so it was an incentive for those classes to be able to come and experience outdoor education. And there was activities, there was a lesson, there was an outdoor hike, and snacks and everything that were provided so that the students could get the fullest experience from learning within the classroom about habitats. In this case, it was grade 4, and then participating in activities together, hands-on, and then going outside to really bring all of that learning into the great outdoor classroom and applying it, of finding different shelters, finding water, finding the different needs within, and looking for animals, and playing games and feeding birds, and getting a chance to really be incorporated in the outdoors. This placement and how it's supported the Toronto Botanical Garden, how it supported these students especially, was that many of them hadn't really experienced what it was to be outside in that way. Many of them were really excited to see a squirrel, and they would all point out very excitedly about that, or different kinds of birds. Sometimes we saw deer, but even just a squirrel, and we think those are so common. But many of those students, maybe based on the lifestyle that they're in, or the work schedules of their parents, or different things like that, we don't know. There could have been, with COVID and different things, there's just less exposure, and then maybe parents are busy and there isn't as much time. And so some of these students just didn't ever get the chance to be outside in that way. And so giving the students that opportunity to connect with nature and find that learning, but that joy, that inner playfulness, and connect with nature and learn outdoors was huge. And especially with that demographic that really didn't always have the opportunity to experience that even right in our own backyard. And that would, of course, inspire more opportunity to do that, whether it was to return there or to be outdoors more, or maybe suggesting it, which is something that if there's room, there's a possibility for. I feel that for the organization, having the children come, being able to prepare for them all the different activities, it's so fulfilling, it's so rewarding. The garden itself being filled by students, by children learning, is something that really, all the volunteers that work there, that we would speak about our different experiences, and they wanted to share that with their donors, with their sponsors, because to them that was what was rewarding, that was what was fulfilling, to help to facilitate that and to help that programming and learning come to life for these students that were on this field trip. I find that communities and schools being interconnected is critical and crucial to the functioning of a school. At my placement school, we have the Toronto Police that are part of the breakfast program that come in every Wednesday morning, and they help serve. We have pancakes every morning. I'm also a part of this. And I got to know some of these officers, and they were there for maybe 8 years, 6 years. They saw many of the students grow. That being able to see the officers in the school making connections, being a part of the environment, the community, they're more able to connect to them and realize that for the officers, being able to connect to those kids and be role models in that way, or have that they're accessible, that they're open, but also for the kids to be able to see that they don't have to be afraid, or like they're there in the school with them. They know their faces. These were the local community officers that served that area. And that a lot of them were saying things like being able to break down those barriers about race, about different things, that the way over policing, these kinds of things, like trying to build relationships, especially early, so that before any of these biases or stigmas start getting created, to like be able to really work together as students grow in the community, and being those role models that they know that they can look up to and that they can also go to. that's one example. Another, again, in the school that I'm in, being a model school, it was like another high in terms of high needs, and how the certain needs in that demographic, in that community. In this case, there was community housing that was very close by. This area seems to, on the whole, be a wealthier area, but with a lot of those students, and this is how my teacher explained it, a lot of those students might be moved elsewhere because of the reputation of this school, because of the community housing. And so some of these dynamics, this school is within that area, but most of the students are from a certain housing area and demographic that's different than that. And so a lot of those students are leaving, but those students being in the school, and so there's much less students. And so how do you approach that? How do you deal with that? And I found that the teachers themselves were extremely supportive of those students, regardless of what background they came from, and that each parent the relationship was built with the parents, with the families, regardless of what walk of life they might come from, and treating each person equally in that environment and being able to provide for their needs. There was a snack program that they had, there was a breakfast program that filled some of the gaps in terms of what the students needed in order to learn effectively, that they may not be getting in the same way, or that might be more efficient, more effective in order to provide for those students, given the situation or given what their parents might be facing, what the community might be facing. Again, with that dignity, there's a lot of pride in the breakfast program. There's a lot of pride. They have the officers, they have thank yous. It's a club that they have, and so anyone can join. It's very inclusive in that way, and that you opt in or you opt out, and you can come in for a certain month or not, and students are given the nutrition they need regardless of their situation, their background. Another support is having the Early On Learning Center that was right connected in the school, and also one of the EAs who runs the breakfast program having her own homework club that she had that wasn't too far away, and students had somewhere to go after school so that they could get help with their homework, that they could have that positive role model. They can they also have play, they have different activities, but they were engaged in a positive way, and that it really came through in their schoolwork. You knew which students actually went to that Miss Seeley's after school club because of the way, with their punctuation and their capitals, and everything was in a certain way how it was written, because of that extra time that they spent with her, and how that program really enhanced the school itself, but also helped those in terms of the students having a chance to be in good programming, something that was engaging and help them to grow and learn after school. Early on care as well. If parents aren't as able to come at a certain time, if they need support in terms of having their child in something that is engaging and positive for them, while they have to take on their tasks and responsibilities based on where they're coming from and what they need, it's all provided within the school environment. And having those connections with the teachers, between the classrooms, the teachers, the community organizations, coming together and bridging gaps was really powerful. Even seeing things like the police officers helping out, getting textbooks for Miss Seeley in that program because she didn't have any. And so they went in the connection with the breakfast program, asked their chief if they could have these donated, and that happened. And so the textbooks were used as part of enhancing that programming and helping the students to learn. So in the end, communities are there so that we can help each other, and everyone has different specialties. And so being able to call in these different specialties and be able to work off one another is very important for not only the students that are benefiting, but for us that are providing, or for those organizations that get to really fulfill what they are trying to do in their mission as well. In addition to that, one more thing is having guest speakers like the dental organization who came in, or an author who came in to do a read with all the students and their parents. And I know, again, these are just more examples, but seeing the school as the center or the hub in a community, and being able to make connections like spokes on a wheel, and then it turns, and then things grow, and then things happen, then it works. And so this is the importance of community. And I think the only way of understanding the material we learned in this course was actually applying it, actually being a part of it, and seeing how it really works. And I know as a future teacher, I have a contact with the police officer that I worked with, and he said if we ever want to do initiative together about equity, and he's moving towards the head office, and he's going to be working on that within the force. And as a teacher, that if I'd ever like to pair up, we could do something for the kids and really continue these initiatives. So I think that is my example of what this course means, of what community and school is about, and how it benefits one another. Thank you.